Welcome to another episode of NeverEndingPanel.com. Tonight we have a special guest, Dani Dixon, who is the president and creative director of Tumble Creek Press. But the topic tonight for the first panel, even though I'm not supposed to say that because they're all separate, is...
For this panel.
Thank
you.
Publish or die. How do you find a publisher that sees your vision? So we're gonna throw the question open right there. Eitan and I are obviously, you know, when we did our manuscript, we were like, whoever wants to buy it, you can have it. And the agent that we had at the time said, no. This is a specific work, and we got to find the right guy. We didn't care. We wanted to just see it on shelf. You know, how do you answer this question?
My solution to that was to start my own publishing company. So
do it yourself.
Do it yourself.
Right.
But I mean, I speak to people a lot of times because people will come to me and say, "Oh, will you publish my thing?" And I don't think people understand the amount of time and money and effort that goes into taking that on. I will have the conversation, but being on the publisher side, the thing I always say, prove to me that your idea is better than the 7 ideas I have waiting, because I'm a creator as well, first and foremost. I find that...
your mental slush fund.
Why should you go to the top of the list?
Yeah, why should you go to the top of the list? And so few people are actually even ready. Like they're like, oh, I have this great idea, and then it's like, that's awesome. I want to see your first 4 issues, the script. Well, that's a lot of work to do. Well, that's a lot of work for me to do. So, if you can't even write the scripts, which actually don't cost you money, it costs you creative energy, which I don't depreciate at all. But if you don't even have that, then I can't even start having the conversation with you. So.
Right. Eitan was telling me, like, when we first started writing together, that within his group of friends, they all have great ideas.
Yeah.
And I'm very suspect about what a great idea is and what isn't a great idea. I subscribe to Philip K. Dick's view, which is essentially a great idea is an idea that when you write it and the reader reads it, you engage in a sort of contract together where you're allowing them to imagine your world. They can extrapolate very clearly from that. Oh, well, that means, and then this would happen, and therefore, like with your book 13 for your comic, do you call it a graphic novel?
No, I call it a comic book series.
Comic book series. So the notion that every kid has that year where they get a superpower. People immediately start imagining, well, if I was, what would mine, and all of that. And that's part of the magic.
Right.
And this is the magic of a good idea to a certain extent that it involves
people. By the way, Dani, in that world, your boys would be 4 years away from a superpower.
Right. Thank you. That's really, really twin boys 9. They're in the squirrel phase of their life.
We have a pair of twins. Twins are not fun in this world for the adults. Yeah.
So I feel you. In other words, it's not enough to have something that's really cool. You really have to show proof of concept that it's cool, but can it go beyond X number of pages? Whether it's a manga, whether it's a comic book series, whether it's a novel, whether it's a script.
Again, we could tell the people out there what we did, Dani and I personally, is we wrote the first 50 pages and we gave it to a fair number of people who were not direct friends and family to see if it was worth pursuing. And once we realized that we had that and we took what they said into account and so on, it helped us on the road to publication. So there is a...
Right, but so the notion of how do you find a publisher who sees your vision, again, to be more specific, I remember when our agent showed us the 8 or 9 houses he was sending the book to, and I researched them rapidly, and I researched the editors that he was sending them to, and I remember reading... the blog of David Hartwell at the time, he's our editor now, wasn't our editor then, and I remember reading his blog and saying, this guy's really funny. He's got a super dry sense of humor. How great would it be to work for him? And to a certain extent, that was my dream to take our style of writing and our thinking and put it in his hands, not knowing that, that was a long shot, and we got lucky. A little bit of luck, a lot of hard work. But that is the case where you have to tell somebody, let's say somebody comes to you with an idea, and maybe they pitch you a nice idea and forget the fact that they've written or they haven't written. You would have to, I guess, be able to say to them, this isn't something that we would do. I like that idea.
Right.
You might consider going or looking in.
Right.
So where would they go and look in? How would they begin this process of, how do I know who I should pitch this idea to, forgetting the fact that they obviously need to create enough content to give to someone. How do I go about that process?
Well, I mean, there's a number of factors. There's sort of large genres within the industry, whether you're talking indie or the bigger publishers. There's the capes and tights, right? So there's all of those types. We don't do capes and tights.
What does that mean, capes and tights, for those of us who don't know? I'm assuming I'm getting, but
DC, Marvel, costume
capes
superheroes
and tights.
Capes and tights. So, we don't do those at all.
Except for the Invincibles. No capes.
But there's tights.
There are tights.
So you need to look at people, who do that thing, and there's certain people who do things that are for, definitely directed at kids, and some things that are definitely directed at adults or, adult. So,
Right.
You have to decide, there's certain things, certain content I would never even consider at Tumble Creek Press.
Right.
You need to look at that. But I think the thing is, the editors, like, who are you going to be working with day in and day out? Who's going to get you, but who's also going to challenge you? And who's going to fill in that little bit that maybe is missing. Maybe you have a lot of ideas, but you need to, cull them. And someone who will just, red line some of your things, like, we can't have 17 sub-stories in issue 3, and so you look for that, because ultimately you want someone who's going to not just print it, someone who's going to make it better every
Gotcha.
time. So I think that's a key.
Okay. And Eitan, do you have any other questions for Dani with regards to how do you find the publisher that's perfect for your work? Because you've got about 38 seconds, 37, 36, 35, 34.
I can't
Quick,
think
quick.
anymore!
I will also
Well, except for
say-
this one thing.
No, she has something else to
Yeah,
say.
I would just also say, if you are going to present to a publisher, having at least one or two images that are very, very provocative, and I don't mean in a bad way, but just very much or evocative of what your central idea is. Maybe not even your central character, but some emotion hit there that ties in what the theme of your thing is. That'll make people identify and remember you.
Gotcha. So not just a pretty picture, but
Yeah.
an idea.
Yeah.
Having been on both sides of the line,
You have about 8 seconds.
what is the advice you could give somebody,
5.
having been there on one end, and then being on the other end, being the publisher? What do you take from? What can you tell somebody, having actually literally been? What do you take most from remembering being when you just wanted to get yourself published to now being the publisher?
Longevity as well. I mean, there are ideas that I've had that I've thrown away, and if someone says I want to do a series, then make sure that idea can sustain itself for 15, 20, 50 books, or know that it's a mini-series going in, because the worst thing is to get in.
Do you have Excalibur or Transmetropolitan?
Clueless, yes.
So,
Well, technically it's Camelot 3000 or
Yeah.
Transmetropolitan.
Okay, and on that note, we move to our awkward pause.